Well, a very good morning to you on this sunny but slightly breezy Friday in Cape Town. My name is Mark Long, rector of the parish of St Andrew in Newlands. I've made a decision eventually to name these Fridays together, and I'd like to call them Friendship Fridays, an opportunity to reflect on relationship and the friendship that goes with relationships, both in terms of our friendship with God, with the world in which we live, and of course, importantly, with each other. Today, I'd like to focus on a very brief passage, in fact, one verse from John's Gospel, John 11, verse 44, and I think you'll recognize the context. The dead man came out, his hand and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." I'm sure you've recognized that as relating to Lazarus's death and Jesus raising him back to life. Lazarus had died in Jesus' absence. Jesus arrives, spends time with the family. We see him relating to their deep grief, and then at the graveside, calling Lazarus back into life and into relationship. Patrick Tuama, in his wonderful book, Daily Prayer with the Corrymeela Community, has a prayer that reflects on this verse. And I found it helpful in that Patrick points to the fact that when Lazarus died, he would have been washed by those who loved him and wrapped in the grave clothes and placed in the grave. As he comes out, of course, the same people probably unwrap him, but he now has the opportunity to wash himself. And that shift from being washed by others to washing himself, for me, is a wonderful image of what it means to come back to life. We're all grappling, I think, in the midst of this pandemic, certainly in Cape Town and I think around South Africa. The deaths from the virus itself are growing. I seem to have had, fortunately, not COVID-related deaths, but I've had a number of funerals over the last few weeks. Death's very much around, very much part of our experience at the moment. And so present in a very physical and practical reality. But there's also another reality of death and life, and that's lockdown. And I think that in terms of a number of the conversations and meetings I've been part of in the last week, there's a level to which I'm realizing that lockdown killed life as we knew it. What we called normal is now actually dead. And we've buried it, and we've mourned it, and we continue to mourn it. And we continue to have all the emotion that goes with that. And if you're anything like me, it's a roller coaster. Some mornings I'm just not able to get my head above the duvet. Other days I'm bouncing out of bed ready for whatever the challenges of the day may be. But reality is that life has died, but life is also being resurrected. And part of the transition that I think we're beginning to go through, certainly in the context I'm involved in, is recognizing that we need to come back to life, new reality. And part of that new reality is that COVID-19 is going to be with us ongoingly, and that we need to actually change our lifestyle to accommodate that virus. And so everything that we knew about life, we will recognize again. Because life ultimately is life. But the way we actually live that life and the choices we make around that need to change. And so there's a need as we awaken to the new life to explore what it's all about. It's almost like being born again and rediscovering life. And so much of it is just with the practicalities of ensuring we regularly wash our hands, wear face masks, be aware of others around us. And for the foreseeable future, we're going to need to live quite differently on that level. And somehow we've got to get our minds around that. And it's difficult and it's hard. And I find myself, it's easy with strangers to remember to stand back, to not get too close. But when it's a friend, when it's someone I know well, there's a level of there's no way this person will hurt me. And so the 1.5 meters shrinks and the temptation to perhaps not put the mask on is quite high. But those are kind of realities we've got to learn to work against, and begin to ensure we see friends as still as friends, but the virus will never be a friend, and we need to protect both ourselves and each other from this virus and the possible dangers of it. And that takes some learning. And almost every interaction I have, I come away from realizing that there's a boundary in that process that I've probably overstepped, and need to step back as a gift of friendship, as a gift of life to the people around me. And so to encourage you, I know it's difficult, but in the context of our faith, the context of the gift of life that God gives us, we really want to see that life thrive in one another. And so there are areas in which we need to be careful and loving in the way we continue to deal with each other and interact, particularly on a kind of physical daily space. So I leave that with you for some thought, recognizing that we, in a sense, have died to what was there. We're coming alive to something new. And we're still learning about what that looks like and what it needs to look like and what it will look like. And there's a lot of uncertainties in that. There remain levels of quite high anxiety and perhaps even fear for many of us. But to be reminded that God is with us, God is part of our lives. And we need to continue to trust in God's presence. But we also need to remember to be thoughtful and careful in the manner in which we live in a world where the virus is alive and active too.